Hey everyone, this is Caroline from the Juniper Links accounting channel, and today we're going to look at the employment allowance for limited companies. So this is actually quite a good tax relief that you can claim if you have a small business or if it's just like you and someone else running a company, and I will get into the details of how exactly to claim this allowance and also who is eligible to claim it. So without further delay, let's get into the video. Alright, so what is the employment allowance? The employment allowance is basically a form of state aid that reduces your employer's NI liability up to £4,000 per tax year. This is specifically for 2020/21, so in the future this could increase, it could decrease, it depends on what the government is going to do to it. But essentially right now you can reduce your employer's NI liability by up to £4,000. Which can be quite significant for small businesses. And like I said, that this is a form of state aid, so it does count towards the de minimis state aid threshold. And for most businesses, this is going to be €200,000 in a 3-year period. So if you've not claimed any other form of state aid, then basically you would be claiming £4,000 a year, which doesn't amount to anywhere near the €200,000 threshold, so you'd be fine to claim this. So if your employer's NI liability is under £4,000, essentially the employer's national insurance is wiped out completely because it's under the £4,000 threshold. So you can still claim it even if your employer's liability is under £4,000. So when can you actually claim this allowance? It is available to all businesses and charities, but there are a few requirements that you have to meet in order to claim it, so just double check that you can. So it should not exceed your de minimis state aid threshold. You want to check what that is for your type of business. So for example, agriculture has different thresholds to someone providing IT consultancy services, so you may want to check that. I will have links provided later on in the video to help you find this out. And your company would need to have more than one employee earning above the Class 1 NI threshold. So I will get into what these thresholds are exactly in a second here. But essentially, if you're a single director and you have no other employees, so you're the only employee, then it would not be possible for you to claim the employment allowance. Another requirement is that your previous tax year employer's NI liability was under £100,000. If it was, then unfortunately you can no longer claim the allowance. Remember, this is a form of support for smaller companies to help them employ more people. So obviously, if you have a very high liability for employers NI, it already means that you're able to afford hiring quite a few employees, so you're no longer entitled to this benefit. And if your business is providing 50% of or more of its work in the public sector, then you would not be able to claim the employment allowance in this case. Apart from charities, if you are a charity and you're doing more than 50% of the work in the public sector, then you can still claim this allowance. What if you have no other employees in the company? So like I said, if you're the only director employee, even if you're earning above the Class 1 NI thresholds, you unfortunately would not be able to claim the employment allowance. You have to have another employee that is also earning more than the Class 1 NI threshold. So these are the thresholds for Class 1 national insurances. £183 per week, £792 per month, and £9,500 for the year. I will go into an example here in a second, but before that, what if you don't have a limited company? So the employment allowance applies to all businesses and, for example, charities. So this means a sole trader could be an employer. You can be an employer as an individual. You don't have to be a company. So if you have multiple employees as a sole trader, then you may be able to claim the employment allowance as long as you meet all of the other requirements, just like any other business would. So as long as you meet the requirements, then any business can typically claim this allowance. So what are some of the benefits of the employment allowance? And the main one, obviously, is the fact that you can save up to £4,000 per year, which could change in the future. Like I said, this is based on what the government provides as an allowance. In previous years, it was less. It could be more in the future. It could be less in the future. We don't know that. But essentially, you can save on some employers' national insurance that your company would have otherwise had to pay to HMRC. But this way, as a small company, you can kind of save some money and £4,000 is not an insignificant sum for a lot of businesses. So all to do with paying less tax, and obviously running more salary means that your company also gets more corporation tax relief. So in the example of a husband and wife company, they can pay themselves up to the personal allowance for the year, which is tax-free. Obviously, they're still employers and employees NI on that normally because it would be over the threshold. However, because of the employment allowance, they no longer have to pay that 13.8% on employers NI. They would still need to pay the 12% employees' national insurance, but it's offset by corporation tax relief, which is 19% on salary. So 19% tax relief on salary versus 12% tax of employers' national insurance. Obviously, 19% is still more favorable, so it's still worth running the higher salary because you don't have to pay that employer's national insurance. Obviously, once you start paying personal tax on salary, you would have 20% personal tax, 12% employees' national insurance. It starts to become less favorable because the corporation tax relief cannot keep up with the higher salary. Okay, so here is the example I mentioned. If you had two directors in a husband and wife company, or if you just had two directors as a partnership, however you want to arrange that, this would also apply to directors who have a single employee working for them. It doesn't really matter the setup as long as you've got two or more people that are earning above the Class 1 national insurance threshold. So in this example, there are two directors. They both receive an annual salary of $12,500, which is the personal allowance for the 2020/21 tax year. And this is above the Class 1 NI threshold for the year, which was $9,500. And so they were able to claim the employment allowance for their company. And how this is calculated would be the employer's NI threshold of £8,788, and basically the difference between this and the salary that they received, so £12,500. I put a minus there, but it should really be the other way around. It doesn't matter so much. And basically this works out to be a difference of £3,712. And this figure is what we would use to calculate the employer's NI at 13.8%. In this case would be £512. So this figure here is what the company was able to save in employer's NI by claiming this allowance. However, this doesn't paint the full picture because the company was able to run a higher salary for both directors in a more tax-efficient way. They were also able to claim corporation tax relief because of the higher salaries. So overall, it does become quite a significant tax benefit once you take into account the corporation tax relief as well as the savings on employers' national insurance. Of course, they would still need to pay employees' national insurance on both salaries. So this figure here is actually just for one person, so that's times 2. So for employees' national insurance, the threshold is £9,500. And again, we would take the difference of this and the salary that was run because there's no national insurance up to these amounts. So this is like a tax-free threshold, and then you start being taxed on the difference, basically. So in this case, if we take the difference of these two figures, we get £3,000. And now this figure is what we would use to calculate the employee's national insurance at 12%. And I will provide a link to the up-to-date thresholds and allowances for the year, which you can have a look at. These are updated every single year online on the gov.uk website. So you can use the same exact principles and the threshold may change, the percentages may change. Unless the entire tax structure changes, then this will still be the way to calculate it. 12% of 3,000 is £360. So this is the national insurance that each employee will have to pay on their salary. Again, that's times 2. So they'll still have to pay this, but their company was able to receive corporation tax relief on this extra £3,000 of salary, which is £570. That's 19% of that £3,000 salary. and that's times 2 again. So you can see here, once you add in the savings of about £1,000 in employer's national insurance, plus the savings in the difference in tax here, which is about another £400, that's about £1,400 saved just by being able to run a higher salary. Overall, very big benefit to claim this employment allowance when you've got more than one person in the company that is receiving a salary. Of course, if one director was earning the 12,500 and the second director was earning like an £8,000 salary, then this would not be possible. You still wouldn't be able to claim the employment allowance, unfortunately, because you would have to have over the Class 1 national insurance threshold as income in order to claim this. Okay, so finally, how do you claim the employment allowance? This is the big one. How exactly are you going to submit this claim to HMRC and let them know that you want to offset your employer's national insurance payments with the employment allowance? So this claim is submitted through your payroll software. And most payroll software will have the option at the beginning of each tax year to submit an employment allowance indicator. So somewhere in your payroll software, they all look different, they've all got different names for things, but somewhere there should be an option to claim the employment allowance for your company, and this will apply for the entire company. So once you input this, HMRC will be notified that you're claiming the employment allowance. The payroll software will also understand that you're claiming this and start to offset the employer's national insurance liabilities that your company has against the £4,000 allowance. So it'll start reducing those payments as you go until the £4,000 is capped out, and then you'll start paying normal national insurance for employers after that point. Once you do indicate that the company is claiming the employment allowance, you'll need to declare the business sector for de minimis state aid rules. So most companies will fall under this industrial/other category, which is the €200,000 threshold in a 3-year period. So most people will get the biggest benefit from this. There are certain industries that have a lower threshold for state aid, so I will give you a link to check those. But if you just type in de minimis state aid rules HMRC, something like that, the first or second link will be there with the appropriate information. If it's from the gov.uk website, let me just write that. So gov.uk websites, then you know the information should be fairly accurate. If you do not have a payroll software and you're looking to set up a PAYE scheme for the company and you want an easy option that is also free, then you can look at HMRC's basic PAYE tools. It can be used if you don't have a software. Generally, I wouldn't recommend using this as a first choice just because it can be a bit buggy. It's not the most intelligent software. It's very basic, as implied by the name. So if you do want a more user-friendly software, then you may want to opt for a paid-for option. Some accountancy packages, for example, Free Agent and ClearBooks, will have a payroll software built into them, so you can not only keep track of your bookkeeping, but you can also run your payroll straight through there. So it's kind of like a 2-in-1 solution. As a worst-case scenario, you do have the option for basic PAYE tools. And I will provide a link to download this as well. Okay, so here are our links. The National Insurance Rates Letters has all of the different percentages for national insurance charges. And there's also a link from this page to find the thresholds for each tax year that you want to look at. And you can actually backdate an employment allowance claim if you're eligible, but do seek some advice for that if you are trying to do it yourself, because it may be a little bit complicated. Then we have the link to claim the employment allowance and the eligibility requirements. So it's going to go through all of the requirements that you would need to meet in order to claim the employment allowance. And in there you have a de minimis state aid rules outline. So feel free to check that out. So that's kind of like a 2-in-1 link there. And then of course the link to download basic PAYE tools is here. So if you're interested in any of those options, or if you want to read up on how these things work exactly, or just the thresholds for the year, feel free to explore everything. There's lots of resources online these days, so fortunately it makes life a little bit easier. And that pretty much wraps up the video. So thank you so much for watching. Of course, if you need an accountant, you are welcome to email us at hello@juniperlinks.com. If you've got a question related to the employment allowance, then feel free to leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, then do hit that like button. Finally, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. So if you are enjoying this type of content, then do subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new video. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.